Howdy, boys and girls. Welcome back. This is it. This is the final show of the 2020 college football season. And the 2020 Carla and Crappy show year. Carla, it's the three C's. Charlie, Carla, and Crappy. Can you still see him? I don't. There
Yep.
he is. Now I know you can. Hi, Carla. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Crappy. Hi, Charlie.
This is Charlie's insistence on helping us out today is probably just it's it's absolutely relevant to everything that's happened this season, because from week to week, show to show, day to day, we have no idea. We have no idea. How are you doing down there?
Oh, we're doing okay, I guess. It's a little chilly. They're calling for maybe some snow flurries tonight, so there's that. Okay. But otherwise, still kind of plowing through holiday break, if that's a thing that you do. Otherwise, we're plowing through is probably not the right term, but that's what happens when you're prepping for a new semester. My holiday breaks were uneventful. It's weird because you think, oh, sweet, I've got a 4-day weekend, and then the 4-day weekend starts as like, I can't do anything. There's literally nothing for me to do. Yeah. So, you watch a lot of football, and which not bad. That is a thing that I enjoy. And just kind of relax, which also, that's also a thing that I'm fairly good at. But, the first thing I would ask you, and I did not present this to you before. Did you think we would get here? I mean, to a championship game in January? No.
Okay.
I didn't. I
didn't
thought,
either.
no, I was optimistic we might make it to Thanksgiving. And then I was just kind of like, well, anything we get beyond that is a bonus. And we got some semblance of a bowl season, even though it was smaller and reduced. We got a little bit of a bowl season. And we're getting a playoff, even if the championship game might be postponed. We don't know yet. That's it. That's the epitome of 2020 right there, is the fact that
would be perfect. That would be actually perfect.
That they might push the game a week. Who the heck knows? So you might have to listen to this show multiple times, because if they
we might have to record it multiple times.
Right, exactly, because there's a lot that could change if they push this game back a week. So, so yeah, and I at the beginning of the year, I didn't think there was any way we were going to make it to the end of the season, and I'm surprised that we're here. I guess I'm happy that we're here. There's been a lot going on.
Okay. I'm going to assume that actually getting to this point relatively on schedule would be one of our good things for the 2020 season. But I'm curious about what are our best and worst things of this year. And I'll let you go ahead and go first. What are your, in whatever order you want, best and worst of the 2020 college football season?
Okay, I guess I'll do worst first, because let's get the bad news out of the way, right? Rip the Band-Aid off. So worst, I think the I only had two things that I wrote down that were worst, because there was a lot of chaos and a lot of things that that you could easily put on that list. But the two things that really stood out to me, the biggest one for me was just the absolutely poor returning plans by both the Big Ten and the Pac-12.
Right.
Not allowing for any bye weeks to be able to make up games, making the decision late, or making a decision and then changing your mind. Yes. I think just created an unnecessarily ridiculous amount of chaos around the return of a season that was already going to be, all over the place, chaotic.
Right.
And I think so. Both conferences they introduced additional chaos into this mix that really didn't need to happen. And so that was on my worst list. I would have liked to have seen both those things happen a little bit more organized and orderly. And the other thing was something that we noted, and it didn't even really occur to me until I think it was either somebody on Twitter or my husband said, I don't remember, somebody else mentioned it, that when we sat down to watch the Cheez-It Bowl, it was the first top 25
out of conference matchup of the entire freaking season.
Right.
And so just the overall lack of interconference play led to a lot of like yapping at each other as to what conference is actually better. And I think, because we had no way of knowing, right. and was that the right move? Probably, to keep everything.
I think it was. I mean, I understand the reasoning. You cut back on travel. You're within kind of a conference bubble where all the rules are the same, although it would have been excellent if all the rules were same. COVID protocols were the same across the board for yes. everybody in D1, but it makes it tougher to make those comparisons. But I don't know how else you would have done that.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know either. So, that just kind of stunk, because that's one of the best parts of college football is when you get two teams that are, in different conferences playing each other early weeks. And not having that was just not. And I'm not talking about the cupcake matchups. I'm talking about like the legitimate top 25 rivalry games.
Week 2, Ohio State and Oregon would have been.
Yeah, I know, right? Would have been incredible. So those are my kind of two worst things. I have several best things.
Okay.
First of all, the emergence of Iowa State and Northwestern.
Okay.
Like, that was fun.
Yes.
To have a couple of teams and a couple of different conferences that we're not used to rooting for, put together some really spectacular seasons in really strange times. So kudos to both of those programs. Along the same lines, the prominence of the group of 5 teams, because most of the group of 5 conferences were able to play complete schedules, in the Sun Belt in particular. Just really kind of taking advantage of the situation. And, Coastal was the team we all needed in 2020, but Louisiana made that statement in week 1, right? Like, beating Iowa State. But then you also had BYU and Liberty and Cincinnati and Army. And so like all these like group of 5 teams, we're thankful to have AJ around all season, because it felt like it was a group of 5 season. It really did, so that was fun. I actually enjoyed that. The next thing was talk about returns.
Yes.
The Mac returning and just living into Maction is probably one of my highlights of the season. Like, just going all in on the brand and saying, you know what, the heck with this, we're playing on Tuesday.
Yes.
I loved that. That was so on brand and nice kind of mark of humor in the season.
Yes.
And I'll close with another marks of humor. My 2 favorite parts of bowl season were Mike Gundy's Cheez-It bath, and the Mayo Bowl trophy.
It's send a big tub of Elmer's glue up to Madison and see what they can do. That was just the whole thing is that the trophy hit the floor and just everybody stopped. Just dead stop in the locker room. Like
the trophy breaking, but then like the doctored trophy when they just like duct taped or medical tape, a bottle of mayonnaise to the top of the brilliant.
Which is what it should be. It's what it should be anyway.
Yeah.
And those things are plastic, so they will take all kinds of abuse in the locker room or whatever.
There's probably a joke here about Graham Mertz being the one that dropped the football, but we won't go there.
Yeah, we can pick on Graham next year. We have plenty of time to do that.
Yes, we do.
My best thing is going to sound familiar. I just had one best thing, and I'm going to call 2020 the year of the Kuftic, because it really was the season where we all got to know group of 5 football, because particularly early on, to have the 2 of the big conferences aren't playing. You've got a lot of TV time to fill.
Yep.
And so, you get Fun Belt. And you get these, the AAC games, and you get to see Coastal emerging, and you get to see Louisiana's incredible start. Cincinnati's incredible season. Yep. You mentioned Maction, that they came back and for several weeks just played exclusively on weeknights. That is as marketing genius.
Yes.
It is every bit of the kind of Mac humor, embracing that's the swashbuckling Maction thing. It's just such just the epitome of that kind of
of that attitude. And you mentioned Army. That was the team that I started with this season, and continued with throughout the year. But they had a terrific season. You get to see, I mean, the AJ's been telling us for a long time how entertaining that stuff is, and that's never he's never been wrong about that. But you get to see actually how good it is, and to see teams like Liberty and Coastal and Louisiana, and they're beating Power 5 schools. To see the game that was thrown together between BYU and Coastal, in terms of the regular season, there's no question that game was the highlight of the entire college football season. That was a real joy to be able to watch, to have a reason to watch, and continue to have a reason to watch even after the Big Ten and the Pac-12 got started. We were still looking for those games. The worst thing is a tie-in to that, sort of. This season really exposed the shortcomings in the postseason. I'm not just talking about the playoff. I'm talking about the bowl system as well. In a rant towards the I think it was right before the actual selection of Final Four, the AAC commissioner called the playoff an invitational for the Power 5 conferences, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And you could actually even go further. I read a thing on ESPN this week. Since the playoff has started, there have been 28 individual slots for semifinal games for Final Four teams. 4 teams, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma, have taken up 20 of those slots since the playoff started. And you and I seem to talk every year about, like, okay, number 1, Alabama, number 2, Clemson. Okay. And I know I am not myopic enough to think that the people don't have the same opinion about Ohio State, because Ohio State shows up there a lot. And I know, particularly this year, there was a lot of grumbling that Ohio State got there on name alone, which I've admitted to that before, that Ohio State has that advantage, and that gets us there sometimes. So, but as I said, it's not just the playoff. The bowl tie-ins are too restrictive. Iowa State had an incredible year, but do you put a team with that many? There's no way a team with that many losses should have preference in a New Year's Six bowl over Coastal Carolina. That was Coastal getting snubbed for a New Year's Six bowl is probably a even bigger problem for me than Cincinnati not getting a playoff spot. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a way for those two things to be fixed. It's not a new problem. It's not going to go away. But this season, the way it played out, especially with, when we all got to see how good the group of 5 conference football games are, how good some of those teams are. That really exacerbates the problem, highlights the shortcomings, and makes it glaringly obvious that gotta change that somehow. There's got to be a way.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree, but I'm going to hold on to my comments.
Okay. I have more comments about that stuff too, but we will come to that later. Later in the show. Right now, we have one more game to talk about, and that happens on Monday, January 11th at 8 p.m. We think. It's Thursday the 7th in the afternoon. You might be able to tell from the actual natural light coming through my window here.
And a difference in beverage choices. Unfortunately.
Ginger ale, yeah, I know. And in Miami's Hard Rock Stadium, number 1, Alabama versus number 3, Ohio State. Alabama is favored by 8 points. The over-under number is 75, which I think is still the highest for a national title game since the playoff began. Is that? I think it's still correct.
I think I didn't look that up.
It's close anyway. I am a little surprised that one of these teams are here, as we mentioned in the last show. Although I mean, I did pick Ohio State to beat Clemson. I would not have been stunned if Clemson had won that game, but yeah, here we are. I'm wearing. This is just a little side thing. Nick Saban is not going to give Ohio State the same kind of bulletin board stuff that Dabo did, obviously. But Nick's daughter earlier in this week tweeted something about, when there's begin to be discussion about whether or not you put this game off for a week because there's COVID stuff going on in Columbus still. And she went on this Twitter rant about, we're just trying to make sure that Justin Fields is healthy and blah, blah, blah. And if you don't want to play, you should just forfeit, and we'll play anytime, anywhere. And blah, 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 blah. I'm wearing my Cardale Jones jersey from the Ohio State's last national championship year. Cardale, of course, was the third string quarterback who won the season's final 3 games, Big Ten title game, national semifinal, and in the national championship game. Before she A, apologized, and then B, just deactivated her Twitter account completely, Cardale Jones retweeted her and said, I don't know. Remember what happened last time Alabama had to play a backup quarterback from Ohio State? And that sort of turned this whole thing on for me. I'm like, oh yeah, it's shots fired. Let's do it. It's okay. Let's go. We belong here, and I want to do it. But I'm going to let you go first, Carla. What do you think?
Well, and that's a big thing for me is, when I watched that semifinal, obviously there's not a lot to talk about from the Alabama Notre Dame game. That went the way we all thought it was going to. So,
yeah, pretty much.
Not a lot of news out of that. But when I watched that second semifinal, that was an Ohio State that we haven't seen all year. That was a team that was motivated, and you could tell in every aspect of the game. Mm-hmm. And they kind of beat that narrative down a little bit too much on the television broadcast, on the screenshot of the training room with the score from last year's, I don't know how many times we saw that too many times during the game. Like, we get it, like that. Yes. They were motivated, yes. But I absolutely think that played a factor in that game. Mm-hmm. I absolutely think that, Ohio State was motivated. They were on a mission. They were going to win that game. And the hit to Justin Fields only seemed to amplify that motivation. Yeah. How much of that was painkillers? But at the same time, I mean, Fields played out of his mind, mm-hmm. In accuracy and throws. But one of the big keys there is, other than that hit that he took, which was targeting. Mm-hmm. I don't care what people say, because a lot of people were like, it shouldn't have been a targeting call. Don't lead with your helmet. I had a former college classmate. He's a couple years older than me, so we weren't technically classmates, but yep. He's a line coach at a high school, and he played for Robert Morrison. He's a line coach in Virginia now. Hi, Bryce, okay. If you listen to the show.
Hi, Bryce.
He does. But he made this. But he posted on Twitter after that hit. It said, "You always want to look at your opponent that you're tackling."
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're looking at them, it's going to be, most of the time, it's going to be legal. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that was targeting. He lowered the head. Mm-hmm. I was concerned during that game of like, God, I mean, we were texting, like, how serious are those injuries? Nervous about that the whole time. Whatever they gave him at halftime worked. But you have to worry about the long-term impact mm-hmm. of that, right? And so that's my one concern about this heading into this week. But I mean, all the good stuff, Ohio State's lines just crushed it, both sides. Mm-hmm. They got huge push up front on both sides of the ball. That's how they shut Trevor Lawrence down, was that they just overwhelmed that Clemson offensive line that we thought was really good. So Ohio State played close to the perfect football game against Clemson, and built themselves a lead mm-hmm. that even if Trevor put on his fourth quarter hero hat, it wasn't going to be enough. Yep. And it shocked me as much as it shocked you when it was happening, that they looked that dominant. So you look at this matchup now, mm-hmm. And the only times that Alabama has really been tested this year were shootouts versus Ole Miss and Florida, right? Those are the two games where Alabama has been tested. Can Ohio State keep up offensively? Absolutely, they can. If you look at the numbers, they're almost identical in all aspects. When you look at offensive production, scoring, defense, even their run defenses are about the same. I think that's why the line's only 8 points. That's the smallest line that Alabama has seen all year. Two keys here.
Okay.
Can the offensive and, more importantly, the defensive lines get the same kind of push that they got against Clemson against Alabama? That's a huge question. Particularly when I think it was this morning that Dan Patrick was talking about part of the COVID issue at Ohio State could possibly be the defensive line. That raises some concern.
Yeah.
Because that was how they won the game, was to be able to pressure Trevor Lawrence. They didn't always get to him, but that push did exactly what they needed it to do. So can the Ohio State Lions get that same kind of push to put pressure on Jones and to free up enough space for Trey Sermon on the offensive side, right? Like those are the two keys for Ohio State. And my second question is, how hurt is Justin Fields? Is he going to be able to, he was throwing dimes against Clemson. I mean, you couldn't put the ball in a better spot. Is he still going to be able to do that? Because, okay, you got adrenaline, you got painkillers. That's going to get you through a game. That had to hurt like heck the next morning. And how stiff is that section? Is he able to get enough juice under the ball? Like, those are questions that we don't know the answers to. So here we are, last game of the season. We have no idea, right? Alabama's played more games than Ohio State.
Yep.
This is going to be a good football game. I think the line is spot on.
Okay.
I think the line is spot on. I think Alabama still wins this game, but I think Ohio State keeps it really close, and gives Alabama probably its biggest test of the year. But especially if Jalen Waddle comes back, which is a possibility, game time decision from what I saw this morning. That's concerning. I don't know if you can slow down that Alabama offense enough to be able to keep up. If you get Waddle back too, I unfortunately, I think Alabama wins this game. But I think it's going to be a much better game than we thought it could have been 2 weeks ago when the playoff was announced.
Okay. I want to look and reference both of these, but I want to look at two different games to help explain why I'm feeling pretty good about this. The first thing, the Ohio State Clemson semifinals. And I want to talk about Ohio State's defense, which is kind of an odd thing this season. But I'm looking at Ohio State did a good job of playing to its strength, which is his front seven. And pressure on Travis was a huge thing. But they also were able to make Clemson one-dimensional. Travis Etienne had just 32 yards rushing, and I think the Tigers were 44 yards rushing on the night. Some of that is because Ohio State had an early lead and kind of took that. But that's part of how this can and should work. If you take that run game away, and then especially if you've got a lead, you can help out your young defensive backfield who's still only barely past a half season in. If we're talking about a normal season, that was clearly a focus of what they wanted to accomplish. Alabama and Najee Harris are built in a similar manner. If Ohio State can accomplish the same thing, D-line, smart play by the linebackers, who are underrated. I think they can, if they can make Alabama one-dimensional in a similar fashion, and that's gonna help the back end of that defense. The other game, and you mentioned this one as well, the SEC title game between Alabama and Florida. That's the one that had the 52-46 final score. Yeah. I will say off the top, if Alabama scores over 50, Ohio State's not winning the game. That's just that can't happen. But I'm looking, but to look at Alabama's defense. And I kind of talked about this early in the season, particularly after the Ole Miss game. This did not look like an Alabama defense. Similar story in Columbus. Since then, obviously it's improved. Numbers bear that out. Scores bear that out. Results certainly bear it out. But this still is not a typical Crimson Tide defense. And Ohio State can score like Florida. Ohio State's probably has a better overall offense when things are working. Because Ohio State has a running game to go with Justin Fields at throwing the ball. Particularly, Master Teague missed last weekend's game because of concussion. I would assume the 11 days is going to be more than enough time for him to come back from that. So you got Trey Sermon, who's emerged as a killer tailback in the back end of the season. And you've got a guy who's been in this offense for a while and is comfortable with it, and will do a more than able job of spelling. I assume Trey Sermon would be the starter here. And they have that freshman. He got a couple carries. He's like 5'5" and 250. Yeah. I don't know if you got to see him. It's like rolling a bowling ball through the Clemson defensive backfield. It was awesome. I can't remember the kid's name. So Ohio State can score quickly. It's certainly capable of doing that, as Florida did. But they can also run the clock, run the ball, possess, kind of slow things down when the time comes to the time and situation dictates that you do that. And they were able to do that at Clemson a little bit in the second half and kind of salt the game away. Wild cards. Is Justin Fields healthy? It's not the end of the. Ohio State had such a healthy lead when he got hurt against Clemson. It was interesting because he had to play. I think this was a comment on the TV broadcast. He had to play quarterback. He had to stand in the pocket, go through reads, and make good decisions, which he did. But he couldn't just pull the ball down and run, as he often does, because he couldn't run. I think he will be better off, and Ohio State would be better off with his full skill set on Monday. So if he's healthy enough to do that, all the better. You mentioned Alabama's good receiver, Jalen Waddle. He's practicing. He could play on Monday. Let's just say I hope he doesn't. How's that? COVID absences. Obviously that's a universal thing. Could be anybody, but certainly it appears to be a bigger issue for Ohio State. And if it's a full unit thing like the D line, that's going to be a difficult thing to overcome. And I suppose it still could be. I mean, they made contingency plans to play this game a week later if they needed to. We have no idea, but we could that could be a thing and we just don't know at this point. So that's my caveat here is that any of those things going against me is going to complicate things significantly. I will say that. My final point, though, is I like Ohio State's recent history in situations where no one thinks that it's possible for the Buckeyes to win. I'm not sure that that's even the situation this time. The line is actually relatively tight. But clearly Ohio State's the underdog. Alabama would, if you're just looking at this game, you've got to think Alabama. There's no way. But that sort of mindset, it helped when the last time Ohio State played Alabama in the 2014 playoff. It certainly helped in the semis this year. I think it can help on Monday. And if those wild cards fall correctly for me, Ohio State's going to win its 9th national title on Monday night. Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, blah, 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 all the other podcasting services. You can watch us on YouTube or the show's Facebook page. If you like us, please subscribe, rate, and review. If you don't mind your own damn business, and be sure to come back next fall, because we're not doing another show next week. Because this is it. Unless the game is postponed and there are different things we got to talk about. Maybe, I don't know. We don't. I mean, the 2020 football season dictates that we might actually do another show about the same game. I no idea. I have no idea. The final thing for this season is next season. Carla, give me your best prediction sure to go wrong for whatever college football is coming up this fall.
Well, you better believe after we did this last year, and I said that I was looking forward to more stability. I am not saying that this year. So, and I want to go back to what we were talking about earlier with the group of 5 stuff and the bowl tie-ins and lack of playoff ability or abilities to get in.
Yes.
My thing that is absolutely sure to go wrong is that there was enough outcry about that this year because people saw a lot of group of 5 football. And I felt like this year there was more momentum behind that argument of Cincinnati should have been considered. The fact that like during the playoff show, the playoff selection show, that they had a reporter in Cincinnati as part of that, there's some momentum building around we got to figure out a way to get the group of 5 in. And so my thing that's sure to go wrong is that I don't know how they're going to do it, but they'll figure out a way to involve a group of 5 team in a more prominent, whether that's, I still don't think they're going to expand. I know everybody's been talking about that. I don't think they're going to expand. Maybe it's a couple of guaranteed bowl games. They up the number of group of 5 teams that get near 6 games from 1 to 2. Like I don't think it's going to be drastic, but I think they will figure out a way because there's enough momentum this time to say, okay, we hear you. We're going to figure out a way to get another group of 5 team into a more prominent position when it comes to bowl season or playoffs. So it won't happen. So that's why that's my prediction for 2021.
I will see your prediction sure to go wrong and raise you with a prediction that is sure to go even more wrong. And that is playoff expansion. 2 reasons. Number one, and this is what you just said, this season reinforced the disparities in the postseason to the point where, you even hear references about, well, we should just go back to BCS because at least computers make decisions that make sense. It's just cold analytic. Here are the numbers. Okay, this team is 1, this team is 2, blah, 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 blah. ADs and commissioners learned this year that yes, you can be a little flexible. We can make changes to schedules. We don't have to do things the way we always did them. It's, certainly this year's not ideal, but I hope that there's a lesson, there's a silver lining in understanding that, let's kind of make things work. And if that's, adding a couple games, so there's a group of 5 team that gets in a playoff or gets a crack at a playoff spot, whether that's adding group of 5 slots to the New Year's 6 bowls, as you suggested. And it seems like there's at least willingness from what I've read to talk about this, even though there's still 5 years left on the initial CFP contract. So yeah, I mean, we could see it was painfully clear this season that this is wrong. This is not how it should work. And I think we have a chance now to make it right. So let's make it right. The final thing, I will ask you, Carla. Your Steelers are favored by 6 in the Mustard Bowl against the Browns on Sunday Night Football. Should I take the Browns in the points?
No.
It's kind of what I think too.
No, but figure out a way to simulcast the radio call of your Brownies, as I'm going to do the same thing with my Steelers, because I ain't listening to the Sunday night crew.
I think making the playoffs is one thing. Winning in the playoffs is another. So we're going to be happy to be in the playoffs this season, and then we'll go from there.
I will say that we're flipping to NFL stuff. Sorry, Jens. But
that's what we do.
But I was happy to see that the streak was broken, but you broke the streak in the most Browns way possible.
Yes. And that's fine. I'm still going to take it. Ladies and gentlemen, this was this ninth?
This is
This was 9. The end of the ninth. This was the end of the ninth season. I kind of feel like, I mean, we're always sort of non-committal about the following year because, who only knows what's going to happen. It could be a global pandemic or something and it screws everything up. But I kind of feel like we got to at least do the 10th season, right?
Yeah. Can we do this for a decade?
Well, I mean, you might as well, because we're here. It's just, it's like, yeah. Why would you stop now?
I know, right? Well, Lord willing that there's a 2021 football season.
Yeah. Let's speaking of caveats, let's start there.
If not, maybe we'll talk about something else.
Army's still going to play football. Army's still playing football, and if Army's playing football, we're doing shows.
I'm with you.
Even if it's just the Army Carla and Crappy show or something. Guys, thank you very much for sticking with us all season and for 9 years. And I guess come back towards the end of August when we will hopefully be talking about a full normal college football season with
Amen
games and all through September and stuff. And partner, thank you. We did it again, huh?
We did it again. Cheersing with
ginger ale.
Coffee.
Okay, that works. So. Maybe this is probably what I should be doing most of the time when we tape the show anyway, but whatever. Guys, enjoy the national title game. Be sure to watch 1AA college football in the spring. I think we're going to have an opportunity to do that, and then we will see you in the fall. Right, everybody? Cheers.
Cheers.
Have a great off season.